session 2 with the gelding. I'm going to see if we can pick up where we left off again and then move along. We might end up moving him to the smaller pen halfway through to work on some of the stick stuff, getting it over him. He'll probably be a little bit more flighty from it, so he'll be a good one to watch how to track and keep with them. Good boy. Same thing I was doing before. I'm going to match the steps walking. If I get that eye, I'll back up. Good boy. Good. And if they start to draw on and then lose it, that's okay. I'd still kind of stay stationary, and when he walks off, I'll follow again. Good boy. Good. Good. And I do think this part is important to do with them before you go to the higher energy things with the sticks or trying to get a halter on, touching further back, because I do want them just to be able to sniff me at a slower pace and me give them that release. Good boy. So I'm going to switch over to the stick now and do some of that desensitizing where I'm picking it up and down and kind of moving it with no energy behind it and let him figure it out. Good boy. So if they just stand, I'm going to rest the stick for a second and look the other way because that's perfect. That's the response I want from them. Good boy. Eventually this will build up in a couple weeks to me moving the stick and them coming towards me. It's one of the very first liberty type things I teach them, because eventually if I snap the stick, I actually want them to run towards the noise. Good boy. With him, when I hit a certain point getting close to him, he's going to start moving, and I'll be able to show you how to keep that stick with him. Good. But really, anytime he's soft and looking towards me, there's no reason for me to continue to move the stick. And notice like my body position, I'm very relaxed, and I even have like a leg cocked when I'm doing this. I'm super relaxed in my shoulders. I have no energy pointed towards him. If anything, I'm kind of sucking it back and drawing it in, and that's important when you're putting energy through different tools. So if he walks towards it, I'm going to back up and keep moving it and then release. Good, and release. You guys are both making this so easy. Okay, now I'm going to switch up the exercise, because again, if you do something for too long, they're going to get a little bored with it and tire it out. So I am going to see if he wants to reach out and touch the stick. Good boy. And again, I start to slowly inch my way down it. Ideally, I want to keep that stick on his left side. Again, that's kind of just personal preference there. If he wants me to rub it on his face and he's okay with that, I'll go ahead and do that before the neck. Good boy. Good. Okay, I'm going to start making my way towards touching the neck with it if he lets me. So I'll increase the distance a little bit more. Good boy. And touch the neck and back away. Good boy. Good boy. Good. So I'll do this repetition a little longer and then I'll go back to moving the stick up and down, kind of the desensitizing area, because eventually I want to start tossing it over him. That's also going to help him some with this approach right here. The reason I kept stepping back there and asked him to go forward is because he kept wanting to back out of the driveline area and it kept getting pushed further and further back. He had a kind of interesting reaction to the stick touching his butt though right then. Good. The movement stops, he gets a little curious and I'll release. Good boy. The reason I didn't release there is because he does have a little bit of that, it's almost like anxious confidence where he's like, okay, the answer is usually I turn and look at her and she releases, but now he took a step towards me and he almost wanted to not quite be challenging. I don't really see that in him, but I don't want him thinking that every time he steps towards me, I'm backing off to give him space as if he's taking that area. I want it to be more a release from the energy. Good, so that time I'll give. Good boy. Good. Good boy. So when he gets a little curious, it's okay for him to investigate. What I don't want is for him to turn off the rail right now since we're working on this side. So changing up the exercise a little bit, instead of getting closer with the approach, petting more of the body. Good, and this will be when I can unravel it and practice tossing it over him. Okay, so first I'm going to work on that same exercise where I'm moving it back and forth, waiting for him to slow down. You're such a cute mover. Good boy. Good boy. There. Good. Good. But But with these guys early on, it's a lot of repetition. If they're not all right and relaxed with something moving past it, you can see the two different personalities that I'm working with. The mare is pretty much okay with everything, easy to move past. He internalizes a little bit. He's not too flighty, but you can tell he's anxious. Good boy. And still nervous about the process of being touched and having me approach him. I am pretty impressed though. He's not very fazed by tools. He's more fazed by me getting closer to him. Good. So now I might work on going over the head with this. Same thing as before. Now the tail end of it is down. You might want to check it out. Good boy. Eventually when I do work with them, I'm pretty loud and not super careful in my movements, but at the start I really don't want to scare them, and there's no reason for me to be super loud or harsh putting this around his head or tossing it over. I'm going to try to be light and soft. Good boy. So I liked seeing how he was with the ears getting touched right then. Good. And then the other thing, wrap around the nose. That's the haltering piece. You can see a little bit better now. It kind of preps them for that nose to go on. I like to get it around their mouth area and their nostrils. Good, and see what they're like when it moves up. He's pretty unfazed by that as well. Good boy. Good boy. Good, so I want to show you guys an example of fishing with the halter. I'm going to offer him the halter to sniff just in my hand, but since he's a little more comfortable with me at a distance, we'll probably just end up checking it out when it's on the end of the carriage whip. Now ones that are really shut down and standoffish are going to keep their noses tipped away or their heads down, and the first thing you're going to reward there is basically the position that he's in now, where his head is up and he's trying to focus. His eye isn't overly worried. Obviously he's a little bit tense and trying to figure out what's going on, but his head is still upright. So one that is kind of shut down, their head is going to be down in the ground or turned away from you, and you just want to reward when they go into more of the normal stance first. And then you can start working on these things with them. Good boy. Good. So even though he didn't reach over and smell it that time, he got more comfortable. So I'm going to release for that. So the carriage whip is a little easier to do this with than a lunge whip because it has the shorter tail on the end and you really don't need too much of the tail. You're just going to tie one knot around the crown piece of the halter and it kind of becomes your new lunge whip. Good boy. Hopefully you can see why I call it fishing. It's just like catching a horse on the end of a line. Good boy. And it's going to be the same motion that we were doing before with the lunge whip that I want to do with him now. Good boy. Good. So both of my Mustangs aren't super reactive with that thing coming into the off eye, even when they're not paying attention, so that's pretty cool to see. Good. Now how to work on grabbing underneath. If, again, you have a really reactive one, you're going to take the end of your stick, and you get pretty handy with tools after a while on how to utilize your sticks and ropes when you work with them. But you just want to try to loop the hard end of the carriage stick under one of the knots and pull it back over to you. Good. Good. Good boy. So I can either take it off as the little rainbow over his head, or I can pull the thing off this way. Good. See what he's like when it touches his ears. He didn't really mind all that much. He's not sensitive up there. Good. Just like when you're haltering for real, you're not going to be able to stop the horse in this position, even if you reach under and grab and pull that halter across. If they start moving, just let go. You don't want to start to make a problem with pressure that early on when you really can't follow through with it. Good boy. And really just messing around with them and doing repetitions great. Like, I'm getting closer to him and I'm not really focusing on it, and he's getting more and more comfortable with that. Good. Give him a big release. Good boy. Good. Sweet. I'm going to end his second session right there, where he got a little introduction to the sticks and the halter. He didn't need to go into the smaller space, so it does kind of show you what to do. He only really went around once, but if you have a larger round pen to work them in and you don't have a smaller area, you can put them in to work on the touching and the haltering and all that. It is possible out here. If you have one that's a lot more flighty and moving around, you might be working more with your energy, cutting them off in front and behind until they can rest in that position, and then slowly working your way up to them. That's really the only difference between one that's really flighty and one that just wants to stand still and kind of move back and forth in place, is making sure that you work on your body language, knowing where their drive line is.